It's just after 6 a.m. and I'm on I-15 North, heading toward Barstow as I embark on my day adventure to Death Valley, the Valley of Death. Presumably where nobody comes back alive. Although, if that were the case, then I don't know how the photographs of the place got online. Today's adventure should be exciting. There should be like lots of rocks and flowers and super blooms and salt, maybe some sand dunes. Anyway, so left the house a little after 4, put some juice on the ride. I got front and back, side to side. That was lame. But yeah, should be a fun day. Death Valley is actually apparently in super bloom right now. So, gonna go see some wildflowers and see if any of ancient Lake Manly is currently existing. Because that would be kind of cool to see. Every time that I've been to Death Valley in the past, haven't really seen any, haven't seen a lake. So, we'll hit up some spots. We'll go to Badwater Basin and see if the Badwater is there. And if not, then it'll just be kind of bad salt flat. But hopefully we'll see some super blooms today. And given that it's early March, weather should be pretty good. Alright, nearly at Baker. And we've entered that part of the Mojave Desert with the Basin Range, essentially. So, most of the American West is actually a series of basins in a range. Death Valley is actually the most extreme example of this, where there's mountain ranges with 10,000 plus feet of elevation to either side of it, and then Death Valley itself actually dips below sea level. So that's an extreme example, but that's just basically how this part of the country works geographically in terms of it's kind of compressed together like an accordion. So we're entering kind of this little basin area here. You see that there's a mountain range to the left and a mountain range to the right, and we're kind of going to thread the needle between the two of them. And we should be in Baker, which is the gateway to Death Valley, coming from this angle at least, in about 15 minutes. Now, just before we get into Baker, we cross one of those weird desert things. That's Zizek's Road. And then out beyond that, interestingly enough, one of these salt flats is kind of full of water. That's what it looks like from here. Let's see, yeah, that is in fact one of those usually dry lake beds that actually has some water in it. So this is a good sign that I might actually get to see a little bit of Lake Manly at Badwater today. Because if this has that much water in it, and that's normally bone dry, then maybe, just maybe, there's going to be some water at the bottom of Death Valley. And now we are rolling into Baker, California. There's no more Royal Hawaiian Hotel. It is a myth. And ahead on the right is the giant thermometer. Pretty quiet, sleepy little morning here. In a moment, we're going to go to the left down State Highway 127. The Mad Greek Cafe there on the left. Great strawberry shakes. And we're gonna find somewhere to get off here and use the restroom and grab some water or something, because not much between here and Death Valley. But yes, so that is the world's tallest thermometer. And the Temp gift shop. Temp is in temperature, not as in temporary. And coming up here on the left is Alien Jerky. There it is, Alien Fresh Jerky. There's a UFO that has landed and brought jerky to the people. All right, back on the road. This is State Route 127. You cannot transport illegal fireworks on it. And the next services are in 57 miles, which is where we will be charging. It's not that I'll be low charge at that point, it's just that there really are no charging facilities in Death Valley. So, we will get the battery on the car as high as we can get it. And that will allow us to go exploring for the day. Subject to flooding. Let's see, Baker Shoshone, heavy traffic. Doesn't look like heavy traffic. What we will be doing here is going up the Amargosa Valley toward Death Valley. So basically the Amargosa River flows between Vegas and Death Valley and winds up in an aquifer. And this road more or less goes up that valley. So there's a few different ways to get into Death Valley through here. So there's Shoshone Junction, Death Valley Junction, and then if you go up to 95 in the Amargosa Valley, there's a third way to go into the north end of the park. We're going to be going over Shoshone Junction, which is Jubilee Pass, on the way in. Probably coming out on 190, but we'll see where the day takes us and where the battery charge takes us. I anticipate that I will come back this way, but there is an option to go back on US 395. So it'll just depend on where we are in the day and where we wind up and what the quickest route home is. But this is in effect the gateway to Death Valley. Pretty exciting, huh? Look at all the people out here. We're just lining up to get into the park. And this is the Shoshone Park in Shoshone, California. There's not much here, but they do have a bunch of signs with distances. We are 7,775 miles from Mount Everest and only 59 miles from Badwater. Lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, highest point in the world. You know, only like 7,700 miles apart. No big deal. Over here on the hill overlooking this little town is the DV logo for Death Valley, I would assume. Or maybe some guy has the initials DV. This is the old state route, old state highway, which has been bypassed by the new state highway, which is right over there. And then they have the dedication plaque. The random cactus. It's not an actual cactus, just a pillar of cactus, although there is plenty of cactus out there if you're interested in real cactus. And then the road not taken. Two roads diverge into Yellowwood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair and having perhaps a better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled. Aye. And that has made all the difference. Robert Frost, 1929. All right. About to make the turn onto Jubilee Pass Road toward Badwater. From here, it is a 55-mile drive to Badwater. You have 80% battery, 298 miles of range estimated. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is what we are working with. Plenty of battery for now. And this is Jubilee Pass Road. Next services, 72 miles. Probably at Furnace Creek if I had to guess. This is California State Route 178. 9 miles to the Death Valley boundary. 55 to Badwater, 72 to the visiting center. Road has a speed limit of 65 miles an hour. And I have trail mix. I love trail mix. Good snack. And Jubilee Pass, from which we descend into Death Valley on the aptly named Jubilee Pass Road. Now there was a little bit of bloom higher up, but I am told that the best place to catch the bloom right now is at the lower elevations, which are still ahead. So I'm hearing that South Badwater Road, North Badwater Road, and parts of Highway 190 are where we're going to see the best things, as well as the Artis Hallett. So we will see where the day takes us, but that's it. We are well established now in Death Valley National Park, and this is no longer California State Highway 178. That ended at the park boundary, technically. So now this is just Jubilee Pass Road heading into the national park. And now we are into the valley that is effectively Death Valley. This is the end of Jubilee Pass Road. Up ahead there's going to be a junction. If you continue to the left, it's unpaved, basically desert gravel wash road. And to the right here is the paved Badwater Road. Which will take us to the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. So that is South Badwater Road. And this is Badwater Road, the paved part. And if you look around, there are actually some wildflowers in bloom here. We're not to the low part of the road yet, but we are coming into the bloom now. And then straight ahead, that is the Panamint Mountain Range, which there's snow at the very top. Descending into Death Valley on that one. Here's some of the signs of the bloom going on here. It's not at Ashford. Woods. As you can see, the entire landscape actually over here is just covered in bloom. This is the mill ruins over here in the Amargosa River Valley. Down here and check out the ruins a little bit. So this mill was part of the False Gold Rush of Death Valley. It really wasn't here, but they would mine up in the canyon up there and bring it down here to refine. And if you look straight ahead to the left, well, it looks like it's disappearing over the ridge now, but we are starting to approach the low point at Badwater. Badwater Road through here, just kind of rambling desert road. We are right around sea level. It is 76 degrees. Probably not going to get too hot today, but to the extent that there is heat, it is a dry heat. But right now we're just kind of rolling through the dunes on Badwater Road, approaching Badwater, passing mile marker 41. Well, here's a better view. There is the giant salt flat. Sometimes after a big rain, that starts to fill up with water. And Death Valley, at its low points, effectively becomes a lake. But these are some of the fun things about having a location below sea level in the middle of the desert is you get these salt flats, and when water does pour into it from the Amargosa River, there's nowhere for it to go except the underground aquifer. Now, what's interesting is, and what this salt flat doesn't tell you in and of itself, is that Death Valley, as low as it is actually sitting across top of about 10,000 feet of sediment that has been pushed here by the Amargosa River over time. And that's remarkable in and of itself, because that tells you just how far the valley has sunk, as well as just how much sediment has come off of these mountains and down the river. So what you'll notice is at the base of all of the mountains and foothills over there, there's sort of a flattening point where it's uphill but it's smooth. Those are alluvial fans and alluvial plains, and that is sediment that comes down from the canyons and creeks on that side to fill it. So the Amargosa River is, of course, the main source of water and sediment, but it's not the only one. And during flash floods, a lot of stuff does get carried down those mountains to kind of flatten out the terrain. Now, this is a more sizable one, but what we're seeing is some remaining water on the salt flats, just kind of throughout the area from all the rain that fell. So normally this is bone dry, but there is in fact water on some of these salt flats that is just sitting there, not yet evaporated. And as we drive along the salt plain here, you can see more of the bloom going on there. Roadside bloom, and then further away from the road bloom. So Death Valley is definitely in bloom right now. So, which is kind of nice to see, because usually you come out here and it's just all dry. But with some of those rains that have come through over the fall and winter, we actually do have quite a nice looking flower bloom going on here. Both sides of the road. And then all the way And this is the best poppy bloom spot yet. Just this entire area here is just filled with poppy bloom. Let's walk into a little bit. Penniman Peak over there. And somewhere over there, there's probably military jets, what it sounds like. And more poppy fields. In fact, the entire Badwater Road through here is just pretty much bursting poppy fields. Took a while, but as predicted, Lake Manly in effect. There it is. You don't get this every time you come to Death Valley. Usually there's not enough rainwater, or it's too late in the season, you got the evaporation, but sometimes the lake forms in the salt flat. And there it is. Now you may be wondering, how far below sea level are we? Well, if the sea were to fill us to sea level, that is sea level. And we are down here, more than 200 feet. And this is Badwater. And the big draw to Badwater today, you see all the people out there. They can only go so far though, because the lake has taken over. And now we are at Badwater Basin. They want us to help protect the salt flats by trying to avoid standing or stepping in these little pockets of mud. And the big appeal today, morning. The big appeal today is the fact that it is actually water once you get into sort of the middle of the basin here. So we get kind of a cool double dose of tourism today. We get the wildflower blooms and Lake Manly. Well, I hope nobody steals my shoes. Been to many sandy beaches. This is the first time that I've been to a salty beach. So looking back once again, that right there, that's the sea level line. Let's see if I can actually, I can't see the word sea level. That's how far we are from it. People setting up. I know a pair of jeans that are getting washed tonight. The water doesn't really get very deep. The salt flat is, by definition, flat, but we are indeed in the lake. I'm just gonna say it now. Walking in Lake Manly was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. That is something that you don't get to do every day. That is something that you don't necessarily even have an opportunity to do every year. And a lot of times, even when it does form for a little bit, it doesn't form this close to the parking spot. So, pretty good sized lake. But I don't know how much further I could have walked into it, but I walked pretty far in and it wasn't even a foot deep. So, walking back across the salt flats, Hannibal Peak in the background, and there's all the people back there at the shore. All right, getting back onto Badwater Road. We have seen Badwater, we have walked in Lake Manly. We've collected a small amount of salt on our shoes and on our feet. The floor mat has salt on it. That is great. I'm not gonna film down there because nobody wants to see my feet, but take my word for it, my floor mat is salty right now. And there it is, Lake Manly. I was just walking out of that. Not an everyday occurrence, not even an every year occurrence. So that was quite a treat. I think I'm gonna head to the Artist Palette next. But if I run into any good wildflowers along the way, I might stop. We shall see. Here we got a guy that decided he's gonna bike across Death Valley. Good for you. And we got more wildflower fields here. Now on the north part of Badwater Road, north of Badwater. Starting to get back up towards sea level. Ooh, the Devil's Golf Course. We're gonna go see that. So Death Valley has a lot of these kind of washboard roads. They're actually pretty well maintained. You do kick up some dust. In fact, I'm gonna raise the window so we don't wind up getting blown with dust as this other vehicle comes. Top speed somewhere between 20 and 25 miles an hour, really reasonably. Lower profile cars seem to have a harder time with it. Medium to high profile cars, this is kind of a medium profile car, so it does pretty well on these roads. I'm not like worrying about like hitting any of these little dying rocks. But you definitely have the washboard thing going on. And if you're not used to it, it can be kind of hard to control your vehicle. So definitely a unique thing about Death Valley. Actually, we're going almost 30 miles an hour right now. We're flying down this washboard road, holding pretty solid. But in my youth, I drove a Ford Tempo down this thing, and I promise you, it did not feel nearly as good as driving in this Equinox. But we're gonna go back out onto the salt flat now and check out the Devil's Golf Course. So this is the Devil's Golf Course, and basically it's a lot of compacted rock formations made entirely of salt out here on the salt plain, and you can actually walk it a little bit. And what's interesting is the salt is actually, now the rocks are not, but the salt on the flat is actually very soft. And given that it's not a very hot day, it's very cool on the feet, which I know because my shoes are still drying out from bad water. But there you have it, the Devil's Golf Course. Now making the turn onto Artist Drive, which is a one-way. Apparently the bicyclist is going to do it too. Kudos to you, bicycle person. And we are going to be heading to the Artist Palette, which is in 3 miles. Sorry, 5 miles. 3 or 5, I don't know. It looked like 3, and then from the side it looked like 5. So it's either 3 or 5 miles. The road is a total of 9. It is one way, and you know, the last time I took this road, I don't think it was paved. So we have a paved one-way road with a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. And this will take us back into the hills a little bit to the Artist Palette. Speaking of Artist Palette, the contrast between the mountains and the sky is quite an Artist Palette today. Now I'm in the gulch below the Artist Palette with another prime opportunity for some wildflower blooms. Now, it's not as extravagant in scope as some of the things down below, but we have some very nice, healthy blue and white and yellow, or maybe it's purple, I don't know. These joys of being colorblind. But all right here in the shadow of the Artist Palette, which was formed from volcanic eruptions. So what I'm walking in right now, this is actually not a trail, this is a dry creek bed. We're gonna walk up it a little bit and get a little bit closer. Obviously, there's always a slight chance of a flash flood, but I'm not seeing any evidence that we're going to have to worry about that right in this moment. But there are definitely times when you would not want to be walking up this gulch. And here we are at the base of the Artist Palette, looking up the canyon. This gulch is a bit of a trek. Great views. Here's another angle of the Artist Palette. And this is an angle that maybe best shows why this is called the Artist Palette, as you see the numerous different colors of the rocks. Let's see what we can see if we can just kind of get up on this little hump right here. Oh, there we go. And we have left the Artist Palette, heading back to the one-way Artist Drive to return down toward probably Furnace Creek would be next, I would think. And then I'll make a decision about how much longer I want to stay in the park and which way I want to go out, although I really do want to go to Dante's View, so I'm probably going to go out that way because that's going to give us a great overhead look at Lake Manly. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that it was 5 miles because it's 4 miles of curves. So I think 5 miles in is where the Artist Palette was. Coming up on 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's lovely weather today, really. 76 degrees still. There's certain times of year where it is over 100 and doesn't get under 100. So this is really the ideal time to be visiting Death Valley, is in the spring. The other time that would be pretty good would be like fall and winter, but you don't get the wildflower blooms like you do in the spring. And this year's crop, as you see, is pretty exceptional for the desert. Also, I feel like this road really was meant for like a movie set or something. It almost doesn't feel real. Like I'm waiting for Indiana Jones to like go swinging over the top of one of these rocks or something. At least it's paved though. Because I seem to recall the last time I took this road, I don't think that it was paved yet. I think it was still gravel. It was one way, but I think it was a one-way gravel. So at least we get this kind of nice paved road, nice and in control, and we can enjoy the views here in Death Valley. Still no Indiana Jones. Kind of disappointed. Not in the view, just the fact that Indiana Jones, you know, didn't come swinging into my view. That would have been cool. So, awesome view, Death Valley. Shame on you, Indiana Jones. This bicyclist has some endurance because they got ahead of me at the Devil's Golf Course. They got ahead of me at the Artist Palette, and they got ahead of me here. That's Golden Canyon, but I want to go to Furnace Creek. We're going to Furnace Creek. Let's go to Furnace Creek. I don't know how to tell you this, but we have reached sea level, or whatever that was. Okay, now we are coming up on the Timbisha Shoshone tribe and Furnace Creek. Furnace Creek is basically the main visitor center for Death Valley. So whenever you see those incredibly hot, by the way, elevation negative 190 feet. So whenever you see those incredibly hot thermometers for Death Valley showing that, hey, it's like 130 today, this is where they have it. Oh, it's the ranch at Death Valley. Actually, this is not the visitor center. This is the ranch Death Valley Town Hall. I don't think, no, that's not the visitor center, but we're 190 feet below sea level here, which means I don't believe the sign back there that said that we were at sea level. Furnace Creek Fuel. Furnace Creek Campground. And the golf course. Where's the visitor center? There's the visitor center. Okay. Furnace Creek Visitor Center says lot full. Well, we'll find out about that in just a moment here. All right. Well, there's not a lot that goes on really in the upper reaches of the park. A couple of sand dunes. Of interpretive walks. In the far north part of the park is Scotty's Castle, but the road up that way is closed anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a couple of cool viewpoints. We're going to go to Zabriskie Point, and then we're going to go to Dante's View. And the cool thing about Dante's View is that you get to see Badwater from about a mile above Badwater, which today should be especially nice because that should give us a view of the lake. So that path to the right, that's Badwater Road. That goes to Badwater. We've already been there. Death Valley Gateway marker. And then, there we go. Elevation sea level. Crossing back above sea level, and this time we are on Highway 190, which takes us to Death Valley Junction and past the inn at Death Valley. There it is, the inn at Death Valley. All right, walking up the hill now to Zabriskie Point. It's right up there. So this is the view from Zabriskie Point. It's sort of another artist palette in its own right. You can see the area below sea level back that way. Changes in the colors of the rocks. Indications of old volcanic activity in the different colorings. The artist palette is back that way. Then down this way you have some of the canyons and the Badlands. All right, we've been climbing for a while now on the road to Dante's View, which will be our last stop in the park. And just ahead, it's going to be a dramatic climb for the last quarter mile as the grade, which has been steady between, I'd say between 7 and 8%, is about to go to 15% after this 10-mile-an-hour hairpin curve coming up here. This is where the joys of having an electric vehicle with all that low-end torque come into play. This 15% grade is, while it does take some battery pack, it is nothing as far as what this car can handle power-wise. Not to mention all the regen on the way down. So we'll make up some of the lost power. And we have made it to the top of the grade. And that view, we'll get a better look at that view in just a moment here, but that is the reward when you get to the top at Dante's View. And this is the view from Dante's View. Pretty much, you can go out on that ledge over there and have an end-to-end panoramic, which I might do, but literally directly below us, that is Badwater Basin. And that is Lake Manly. That is all water. So you can actually see the shores and the Loftshoot Creek. It's all water. And here's a little bit more of a dead-on view of the lake. You can see the river. You can see that there are different segments of Death Valley right now that have water in them. So wildflower blooms in an ancient lake that has temporarily been somewhat restored. Not a bad day trip. Now that way is the southern end. And Panamint, also known as Telescope Peak. And the only question I really have is, where is the actual Dante's View? Because this trail kind of keeps going. And I don't think I want to keep going because I'm going to have to climb back up. I've already gone down. But at this point, you get an actual panoramic view. Unobscured, well, slightly obscured maybe, but basically you can see Death Valley from one end out to the other. You get the full Lake Manly effect. We're about a mile above Badwater here. And up there, that's just the north end of Death Valley, going back toward Furnace Creek. But you can see within the sediment there some of the little zigzags of the Amargosa River as it flows into Badwater Basin. There is an aquifer under that salt marsh right now. It's not underground, it's above ground. The water flows in right from there,
couple of other inlets, because you can see the alluvial fans, the canyon. So when it rains, or when that snow melts, and of course it's just a trickle probably right now, but you would see water running off those alluvial fans into the basin. And if you had a severe enough rainstorm, I would assume that more of this would fill up and you'd have a really big Lake Manly. But that salt marsh, that entire salt marsh is prone to flood. And right now, that much of it is full. So, pretty cool.
Yep. We are back on State Route 190. Climbing out of Death Valley. 17 miles to Death Valley Junction. Going over Daylight Pass. Wonderful afternoon. It's been a lovely day to see some wildflowers, dip our feet in Lake Manly, and take in Dante's View. But I think that's about all the energy that I've got for today. I'm gonna have to come back another time and explore some other parts of the park when they're all open. Since right now some of the park is actually closed. We didn't hit Stovepipe Wells and the things around there today, so stuff to come back to and see again. We are now leaving Death Valley. They thanked us for experiencing our national park. That's kind of a cool mountain. Let's see what we can see on the way home. And we have made it to Death Valley Junction. Many places you can go here. You can get to Las Vegas 2 different ways. Personally, I would suggest the State Line Road route because it's shorter, but you know, you have choices. And this is basically the kind of ghost town of Death Valley Junction. There's State Line Road. There's buildings out here. That one looked like it had clothing that mannequins in it, but most of these places, I don't know if they're open or not, to be honest with you. Some of them are clearly not. Some of them, maybe. Anyway, 27 miles to Shoshone, 50 miles to Dumont Dunes, 83 to Baker. 83 miles to Baker and, well, I wouldn't say Baker and Freedom because I wouldn't necessarily call it Freedom, but the interstate. So, back on a main road. Gonna make some time, head down to Baker, and maybe get some food. I don't know if there's not really anywhere to stop between here and Baker, so we'll probably get some food in Baker, but as you can tell, this is where the aliens land at night, because there is nothing out here. Well, having charged the car and gotten a little something to eat in Baker, I now head the last 2.5 or so hours home and enjoy a nice dusk over the desert. It's been a nice day. I should take little adventure trips like that more often.